Hi guys, welcome to another video, and we're going to talk about something a bit different. We're going to talk about a mid-range smartphone from a beloved brand that split from Huawei. Of course, we're talking about Honor, and this is the Honor 9. So this is a mid-range smartphone priced around the £500 mark. So there are some things I like about it, things I don't like about it, and let's get into it in my full review. So the design of the phone itself, I would say overall it's okay, but I think that's where they've saved the money here. The materials, the haptics, it doesn't feel quite as premium as I believe it should do at £500. The frame's constructed of plastic. I believe the back is plastic. I mean, it definitely feels like it anyway. The power button, I believe, is metal, and they do feel quite nice. They're quite tactile. But overall, I'd say the design is just okay. However, I am pleased that the money they've saved has gone into other people. Again, I've had no official confirmation on this, but I believe they are offering 3 years of security updates and 2 platform updates. So it's nice to see, and it's good to see that they're actually trying to support their devices for a longer period of time, even a mid-range device like the Honor 90. So in the UK, we don't get the Pro version. However, we do get the standard Honor 90. I would say in terms of competition, it is a very competitive market. You've got the likes of the OnePlus, Realme. You've also got last year's flagship phones as well that have come down slightly. But with the obviously increase in price of modern flagships, this is definitely at least half. In overview, the areas that have pressed me the most is the screen, the cameras, and the actual smoothness of the UI, which I didn't expect. I've actually used a Honor previously last year, which was the Honor Magic 4 Pro, and I found the UI a bit janky, a bit unsmooth. It wasn't quite finished, and it felt very, very stripped back and bare bones, which a lot of that still applies, but the actual smoothness of the UI, I must say, is really smooth and really fantastic, apart from the shutter lag in the camera app. But again, when we go into the camera section of this review, you are going to see what the camera's like, how it looks, and also how the UI in the camera app. So let's talk about the display on this phone. The display on this phone is a 120Hz full HD panel, and it's one of the highlights of the phone. It's a really, really nice display for the price point. In fact, it actually beats out the display on my Huawei Mate 50 Pro, which I'm very surprised about in terms of brightness, clarity. It really is a good panel, and I would say the colours are accurate unless you boost it onto Vivid, which if that's what you prefer, that's absolutely fine. But really nice display, really responsive. You don't get any flicker or anything like that. It's a really, really nice panel. It's in brightness control from really, really dim, obviously, to completely bright as well, which you can see on my camera. It's just completely ruined the exposure. But a really, really good display. And also a feature pack display. You can fine tune it how you want. You can change the colors. You can change, obviously, you've got like this video enhancement engine on there. The enhancement engine that we was talking about. As you can see, you don't get a super selective version of apps, but it is nice to see. And to be honest with you, I can see a difference. When I watch it in YouTube, I do notice slightly sharper images, and I find that the blacks are boosted so you don't get as dark shadows. So actually, I would say you do notice a difference. Not a huge difference, but it is nice to see. Running the show, you've got a Snapdragon 7 Gen 1, which is the first time I've ever reviewed a phone with this processor. It is actually the enhanced version, so I believe it's been overclocked. You've got a mighty 12 gigabytes of RAM with Honor's 7 gigabyte turbo RAM feature, which uses the phone's actual internal memory, which by the way is 512 gigabytes on this particular model. So for a mid-ranger, you've certainly got all the grunt and all the specs. Obviously, high-end gaming, you still can do it, but you do have to be wary of some of those really graphic intense titles like PUBG Mobile and stuff like that. It will drop some frames when you're gaming, but cooling does remain good as well. And like I say, the actual build version is very, very fluid. Although it's by a long way not my favourite UI. It is very fluid, and it does work nicely. But I must admit, it really does start to feel its age. This feels like Huawei tech from about 3 years ago. You can see the notifications panel. You don't get any customization options. There's no color change. You don't have a split control center like you do on Huawei, iPhone or anything like that. Got your Google Discover feed down here. You can get an apps tray, which is good. So you can get all your apps on an apps tray. But again, we've seen all this before, and we've seen it years ago. I don't see any sort of innovation here. You do have a large folder option. So let's just drag these two into a folder. And if we hold on the folder, and then go to enlarge, you can see that we can enlarge the folder. Obviously, where on the modern Huawei devices, you can actually change the shape of it and make it bigger and longer and stuff like that. On here, you either just get a large folder or a small folder. So it does still feel like they're one step behind in that software department. You can see as the time goes on, they are moving more and more away from that old Huawei aesthetic. And I use a Huawei device every day, so I can notice the similarities between Huawei and not Huawei, good and bad. But I mean, as much as I like my Huawei, I don't want a brand doing the same thing. I love brands trying different and unique things, and I think Honor needs to move away from that a lot more. I mean, it goes without saying nowadays, you do get full Google services support, Google Play, Play Store, everything like that with no issues at all. It comes pre-installed on the device and works absolutely fine. I haven't noticed any bugs in my testing, anything like that. So I must say, yeah, overall, the experience so far has been fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about the camera UI, the camera app, and my first impressions of the photos from this phone. So overall, the camera app, again, it's not flash, it's just basic and it does the job. You've got a few nice features chucked in there, some that I appreciate and some that I think are pretty pointless. But overall, I'd say, yeah, again, they're going in the right direction with the camera app. It's easily laid out and very easy to use. So you can see you've got all your main modes at the bottom. You've also got some bonus modes. So if I bring you in closer, you should be able to see those bonus modes. Let's try super macro. So you can see you have got a super macro feature on there as well. Portrait as well. It's nice. Again, you can change the f-stop. Obviously, of course, it's not a moving aperture like the Mate 50 Pro, but it's nice you can change it. And again, you can see they kind of took that over from the old Huawei tech as well. You do have zoom levels, but again, there is no optical image stabilization on this main sensor, which I cannot stress is such a downfall. You could have, really made a good difference with the, the images and video and stuff like that if you did have optical image stabilization. So we're going to look at some of the features now. So you've actually got a way of filtering the images. So you can see you can actually change the look and feel of your photos and stuff like that. There's quite a few on there and they're quite nice to have. I've personally never used them, never bothered with them because it's a gimmick to me. But if you do like that sort of thing, they are present and correct. Obviously, you've got Google Lens built in as well. So again, works seamlessly with that. Switches nice and quickly, works really well. I like the way you can zoom. You can either use these tap buttons here, or if you hold on it, you get the zoom bar and you can slide quite smoothly, I must say, as well. Obviously, you are only using the ultra wide and the main lens, but it is really smooth, and I really do like that. Again, if you go slowly, you kind of can get a nice sort of really smooth panned-in zoom shot. Biggest problem I do have at the moment with this though is the shutter lag on the button. So if I tap this, it's a really laggy camera. So I can demonstrate it again for you. Of course, on video, it's not showing as bad as it is in real life. But yeah, trust me, when you are shooting in some challenging conditions, it definitely takes a long time to take those shots. However, again, I must say, I'm really impressed with the actual physical processing power of Honor. Oh my God, they've really upped their game in that respect. Some of the photos I actually think outshot my Mate 50 Pro, and that's from a mid-range smartphone. So that main lens really does work, and there's no clever RYYB tech. It's not a super large sensor, anything like that. But their processing power really does work. The noise reduction, I would say, is pretty good. Sharpness, definitely on the more heavier side. They do tend to over sharpen some of their photos, but it is my preferred look on a photo anyway. I'd rather it look more sharp than soft, and when you edit in outside Lightroom, you can always tweak it to how you like it anyway. Very impressed with the colors. Seem very natural colors, not oversaturated. I will obviously drop you some shots. I'm just kind of showing you the camera UI, but over the top of this, I will obviously lay some shots. You've got a night mode. Again, takes about 3 seconds to capture. There we go. And you can use it on the ultra wide, which is more beneficial on the ultra wide than it is on the main camera. The ultra wide is okay. It's going to do the job, but it's not going to give you any amazing results. It is not the strongest candidate, but at this price point, I would say it does a fantastic job. You've got to remember, I'm comparing it to phones such as the Honor Magic 4, the Huawei Mate 50 Pro, the Oppo Find X5 Pro, which, to be honest with you, I'd pick this camera over that any day of the week. I actually think this is a better camera than on that phone, and it's a lot of a much cheaper device. So these are the settings you get access to. You can shoot video at 4K 30 frames, no 60, and you can only do it for 15 minutes as well. You can't do it for longer than 15 minutes without a break. I think that is probably a processor limitation, you know, or maybe a heat limitation, but this phone hasn't really got warm in any of my testing, so I think it's probably more of a, you know, Snapdragon 7 Gen 1 kind of issue rather than the actual phone itself and the software. A standard video, I can try and give you a quick pan on camera so you can see the shutter lag and you can also see how smooth it actually is. So you can see overall it does a really good job. The portrait mode, I'm also very impressed with the result. Again, edge detection seems pretty. Battery life on the device is fantastic. A full day of usage with fairly heavy usage. Obviously it's a 5000 milliamp cell with 66 watt charging without a charger in the box, and there's no wireless charging, which is a disappointment at this price point. Another important thing to mention is you only get a mono speaker setup, which has been equalised pretty well and it tries its best, but it really can't compete with phones with a stereo speaker setup. And again, at this price point, I would have liked to see at least the earpiece double as a secondary speaker. I've actually met the Honor rep who I spoke to in depth about this phone, and if you are watching or you have seen this video, big shout out to you because you were completely honest with me about the product in a good and positive way, and you gave me a real insight into how hard the company is working to improve its UI and its user experience for its customers. So big shout out to you if you're watching. Fantastic customer service from an Honor perspective as well. That being said, this is not a sponsored video. I've bought this device with my own money and you are seeing it for the first time right alongside them. So in summary, this is a no frills design but fantastic feature set for the price point. It really does stand out above its rivals, and I'd highly recommend it for someone who wants a fantastic cut price flagship smartphone. It does have some sacrifices like no wireless charging and not my favourite in terms of build quality or design, but some of the feature sets really make up for it. Of course, I'd like to see wireless charging included in the next model though. Thanks for watching. So of course I know this is not the best put together video, but this is filming after a 12-hour day on my day-to-day job, so I hope you can appreciate the hard work and effort that goes into it. If you do, please consider commenting, subscribing and liking the video. Thanks for watching.